Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Baseline Podshow, podcast for planners. On this show, we bring in planners, to share their journey and their story, But on this particular one, I've got Bill here. Bill has been in the planning recruitment industry for 20 years, guys, 20 years, and Bill's got a lot of experience and he's going to tell us, what the planning game is like, challenges with planning, even though he doesn't do the job, physically, but he knows well about planning. So Bill, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, nice one. So Bill, first thing to do here is for us to know a bit about you, what you do, and your journey so far, and how it all started for you.
Take a long time to say going through all of that.
Yeah.
So just keeping it short, I suppose. Where I am at the moment, I'm a dedicated recruiter for planning and project controllers. So I find planners and project controllers for companies, be they consultancies, contractors, not really the end client, because I don't really chase that. And they don't look to use people like me. And also obviously then helping the planners and the project controllers to find that perfect job for them. It's not just about finding a job, it's about finding a really good fit that fits that person's life, the work-life balance they want, the experience that they want to get or have, and the financial objectives that they've got. So that's in terms of me, in terms of what I do now, in terms of dedicated specialist in helping planners and project controllers find jobs and companies find people that they need.
I looked at your profile and I saw that, you were a lecturer at some point.
Well, basically, long story short, I sort of finished my degree, which was sports science and business. And I majored really in the sports science side because I did a lot of athletics and sport as a young man. I wanted a job where I really could continue doing my athletics, which was training 6 days a week, 3 hours a day. So it's quite a lot of training. Coming out of university, I like the university lifestyle, like we all do. You sort of, socializing and not working 40 hours a week, and so I wanted to do something similar. And the chance came up to sort of teach, in further education. And so I did that and taught, A levels and a bit of degree, first year subjects, and psychology, which I like, which helps with the job I do in terms of recruitment. But I like psychology from a sporting perspective, why certain people have the mindset to always win and never think about losing as an option. And so did all of that, but then decided after doing that for a year, I wasn't going to get to the place I wanted to get to. And that was mainly financially, because I'm very much into cars. I wanted to have certain types of cars at some point in my life. And I thought, even if I became the dean of the university or the head of the college, I just wasn't going to earn enough to buy, really expensive classic cars or supercars. These are expensive things, So I then decided, I went to a recruitment company, just a high street recruitment company, I think specialist. And I just said, look, I'm very competitive. I'm very hardworking. I like to be challenged. So what types of jobs can I do? And they said, you'd probably be best suited to marketing or to selling. And I then said, okay, and I filled in a form, which was like my CV again, which I couldn't quite understand what I was doing. But anyway, so I filled in a form that was my CV. And then I got 2 interviews. One was a marketing job, one was a recruitment job. I got offered both. Didn't take the marketing job, mainly because it was working for a friend of mine who had a Ferrari. So I was all very keen and to work for him because he had succeeded at the age of 25. He was doing really well. But he wanted me to go out to the Middle East, where he at the time he was doing marketing for Pepsi Cola and the BAR Formula One team.
Okay.
So he was doing all of their merchandising. So he wasn't selling cans of Coke and stuff or Pepsi. He wasn't selling, Formula One cars. He was selling the umbrellas and the T-shirts and all that stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, with marketing, yeah.
but he wanted me to go out there and take a £10,000 salary to go and live in the Middle East, and that would mean I wouldn't be able to do my athletics. I wasn't worried necessarily about the money, because I knew if I was hardworking and you could earn good money, then I would reach the top of whatever I was doing. So the recruitment thing just stood out, and I took a job in IT recruitment, and it was a little bit like, wasn't quite as bad as Wolf of Wall Street, the movie, but it was a little bit like that. A lot of characters and a lot of people throwing around money and keys of cars and saying, this is what I've got, and this is how good I am. I'll keep it clean, but so some stories there to be told. And then after about doing it for 5 years, I was making the company about £1 million a year.
But was that Project Resource Limited?
No. This was a company called Computer Futures.
Okay.
I was making about £1 million a year for the company. I was one of the best performing consultants out of 1,000 recruiters. And I just decided that I wanted to do my own thing, get a bit more of the money myself. I didn't really respect some of the directors because of the way they conducted themselves. If you've watched the movie Wolf of Wall Street, a bit like that, to be fair. So what didn't really appeal to me, being a sort of a healthy guy, and I have a few beers from time to time, but so I decided to do my own thing. Got a friend of mine to sort of come along on the journey. We set up Project Resource and grew the company from just 2 of us to 70 of us and 4 or 5 offices. Wow. had some failures along the way. Set up an office in Australia. Didn't work for us. And had offices all over the country. And then I decided to move on 3 years ago. The company sold, and I left my partner to it, and he sold it again, I think about 6 months to a year ago. So it's owned by a different company now.
Wow, B, man. What an amazing story, man.
Yeah. But so from my perspective, it was just about, I still work. I've always worked from I normally get up between 6 and 7. I normally run and do stuff like that. Now walk a dog as well. But, I work hard. I'm a workaholic. You know what I mean? I just work all the time. So people say, why haven't you responded? It's like, well, I have. I've got about 300 emails a week that I've got to go through, and I've got 2 companies and 2 businesses, I've got 3 kids, I've got a wife, I've got friends, got all this stuff to do. And I love cars. So I go to about 20 car shows a year. So I'm a busy guy,
Yeah. You're busy. You'll be very, very busy, Bill. And it was an amazing story, how you started, all that, you factor all that into it, getting into partnership with people, I know sometimes it could turn out well, or sometimes it could turn out, it could go the other side, but for you, talking about, working with people and partnership as well, what does partnership mean to you? Like, is it good for business? Is it bad? What does that really mean to you?
What partnerships?
Yeah, partnerships, yeah.
I think it depends, and it does depend on the person. I mean, I won't lie, it's very, very difficult to go into work with a partner that you care about, or is a friend, or is God forbid a wife or husband. I couldn't imagine that. I mean, if me and my wife work together, and then I think a lot of people have had this problem over COVID when they spent a lot of time at home. When you're in each other's space all day, it's really bad for the relationship. I think you need time and space.
Absolutely.
Luckily I'm still, married, and I'm thankful for that every day. But it's because, to be fair, I let my wife do what she wants to do in terms of her friends and going out. I don't say she can't do it. And when I want to go out and go to car shows and go and watch football matches, she lets me go and do it on my own, because you've got to have your own individual. It's almost like you have to have your own individual life.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Because if you still live in each other's pockets every day, but when you're sort of going into work and you work with each other, it's difficult. I think it worked for me for a good 5-10 years, and it became a bit difficult near the end. And through, there were ups and downs, but you've got to just try and make it work. I think the difficulty is now in this day and age we now live is that so many people just think everything is throwaway, and they don't work at the relationships. They don't, if that job's not working, they just say, I'll go and get another one,
Yeah.
Or the TV stops working, they don't get it fixed, or the sofa, they don't get it repaired, they just get a new one.
again,
And it's like that, and that filters down for everything. So I get asked a lot by planners, well, I work in oil and gas, I'm sure I can work in data centers. And I'm like, yeah, you can probably, but the clients I work with, the employers I work with, are not asking me for that background. And even if they are, if I have a planner that's got 10 years of building data centers, and I've got you who've done oil and gas for 10 years, which CV are they going to look at? They're going to go with a data center guy or girl.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
because we live, I mean, you know, tonight I go up, relax, get a cup of tea, turn on Netflix, I can watch anything I want. So you start immediately. Yeah. And you couldn't used to do that, you know, but now you can. And that's what people want with everything in life. They want instant.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, absolutely. Like when planners come to me as well and say, okay, I want to get into planning, you know, how do I do it? You know, but based on my experience or what I know, the first thing I ask them is, you know, which environment you want to work in, because planning, there are different environment, different projects. For me, you have to know the product. If you don't know the product, it's difficult. You know, it's like someone giving you a car to drive and you don't know anything about that car, you know, and you know, you don't know if there's no gas in the car, there's no water in the radiator, you know, what do you do? But first things first, you need to know the product. Like me, I was in highways for years, you know, highways, smart motorways, you know, I know that environment, you know, I know the product. So if I'm going to another job that has highways, you know, I know the product already. So it's always a case of, you know, you've got, like you said, you know, you've got that experience, but I'm asking for certain type of experience for this job, you know, and that's what I want, you know. So people tend to think, oh, I want to go into planning. Being a planner doesn't mean that you can work P6 in any job, but the thing is that you have to know the product. That's just the thing for me, you know.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would say to you that a lot of people don't seem to get, and they keep, you know, they keep telling me this when I speak to them. Most employers prefer someone who's come from a trades, labor, or engineering background. Okay, so if I'm always looking for highways planners. If I had 10 of them, I could probably get them jobs by the end of this week. Okay, so there's not that many of them, but ideally they want someone who's done a civil engineering degree. They've then gone and been a site engineer for 1 to 2 years, maybe being a site manager, project manager, then moved into planning or wants to move into planning. That's number one person, you know. But there are some planners who maybe they've done a degree, maybe they haven't, and they've gone straight into planning. So, but the problem with those people, from my clients' perspectives, is sometimes those people are good with IT and the software, but they then have to ask lots of questions about the process along the program because they don't understand the timescales of the project because they've never been an engineer.
Yes. I understand that, you know, because you tend to ask things about quantities, you know, like what it takes, the building process, the sequencing, you know, you ask all that. I think having an engineering degree, it is good, you know, it's a very good thing. But for like me, I don't have an engineering degree, you know. I had a project management degree, you know, but my approach was working on site. You know, I worked on site for years, you know, so I was in Crossrail, building sites, you know, a lot of sites, just learning how things are done, you know, speaking to site engineers as well, you know, graduate engineers, you know. So I had that part, you know, in my career to becoming a planner, because I was on the tools for years, you know. And I think when I go to interviews, you know, and they ask me my story, my journey, I tell them, they're like, okay, you've been on site for a while, you know. At the time I was also a slinger signaler, you know, on site, you know, and I did that for like 3 years, you know. So I was just on site, you know. And I think for me with planners, going on site is key as well. It's very, very important. There's no need sitting in the office, you know, and just working with basics. I don't think that's the way to go about it. But Bill, you know, you going into recruitment planners, you know, was that the first thing for you to do? You know, because being into recruitment, you know, and you now kind of like, okay, did you say to yourself, I want to recruit for planners, or is it something that just came out of the blues?
Firstly, when I was in IT recruitment, I didn't want to do IT. I mean, if you've got a good memory, around the year 2000, we had the world was going to collapse and all the computers were going to stop working. Yeah. Right, that didn't happen. And then I think it was 2021, I think it was, or maybe 2020. It was becoming very difficult. There was almost like a recession in the IT world. There wasn't loads of recruitment happening. I was still doing better than most in terms of my job and in the company I worked for. But when I decided to leave, I just thought, you know what, I want to do something different. I mean, life is too short, you know. Is it, you know, I don't think it's short, because I think I've already lived about 5 lives, you know, in terms of my studying and then becoming an athlete and then doing my work and then having family. You've got different lives, haven't you? It's, you know, it's, when you think about it, it's so long, so much time. But I decided I wasn't going to do IT and I wanted to do something new. And one of my friends at the time sort of indicated that the construction industry was really busy. And if you could find a quantity surveyor, then normally you could easily place them into work. I like architecture. I always love going to places like Florence and Rome and, you know, countries where and cities where they have lovely buildings. You know, I live in a cottage, which, you know, is 200 years old, you know, so from my perspective, I like old things, and I like new buildings as well, but not so much. I think the older stuff's cooler. So yeah, just decided that we'd give that a go. So we started business, Project Resource, finding quantity surveyors. And I think pretty much within the first 3 or 4 weeks, we're just speaking to people as you do. We had no database, had no candidates, had nothing, nobody. And I just had to start from zero. Imagine an Excel spreadsheet with nothing on it. You've got to fill it up with names of companies that recruit people. So we did that, put 50, 60 companies. And speaking to a lot of them, you know, one of them just said, I don't suppose you could find a planner for me, could you? And I was like, yeah, probably. What do they do? Well, I mean, obviously I know what the word planner means. But I'm like, okay, tell me what, okay, don't want to be big-headed, but I'm an excellent recruiter. I know what I'm doing. I know to tick off all the things that need to be done. So what does a planner do? What do you need them to have? So I took a job, you know, description, and they had to have this and that experience. How much can you pay, and how quickly do you need them? How many interviews have you already had? Have you spoken to any other recruiters? The manager was happy to leave it with me. Yeah, through obviously had confidence in my ability. And within a space of a week to 2 weeks, I'd found a planner and found them a job. And from there on, we thought, you know what, if you set up a company and you've got 2 revenue streams, one's quantity surveying and one's planning, you've got double the amount of growth.
Absolutely.
So we just decided, well, actually, you know, it also then differentiated what my partner at the time would do. He would do quantity surveying, I could do planning. So we weren't also in the same space. Sometimes when you're in the same space as recruiters, you've both fighting for the same jobs and the same candidates. So you might have a candidate or job seeker looking for work, and you both want to put him forward to different jobs. And then one of you says, no, well, I want him to get my job. Well, I want him to get my job. So they have a little bit of internal conflict. So that's really how it came about, to sort of get into planning, and just on and off through the years, I've done more of it, less of it, because obviously I've been a director of a company that's, you know, with 70 people, I wasn't doing a lot of day-to-day recruiting, but I was still speaking to companies and getting onto preferred supplier lists and all the bigger stuff, the business development. So naturally, when I finished, I thought, well, I've already got a connection list of 5,500, 6,000 planners. There's no point in me starting from this Excel spreadsheet with nothing on it again. So I might as well start from planning. I know planners, I know most of the companies, so let's just start doing that. And as you can see from my LinkedIn profile, you know, it's planning, and planning, you know, so
yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But from your experience, Bill, you know, like, you know, when looking for a planner, like, from your experience, what do you think makes a good planner?
It's difficult to say always, because I think the most important thing with any person that I'm looking for and that my employers are looking for is they're looking for the right attitude. Okay, and that might sound stupid because you can't really see that on the CV as clearly as you would hope, but ultimately they're looking for the right disposition that the person has. They've got a can-do attitude. Anyone who knows me will know that I have, I believe very much in PMA, which is positive mental attitude. I say that to my kids probably every month. Be confident, believe you can achieve something, do your hardest, perform your best. because even if you perform your best and you don't succeed, you can't say you could have tried any harder, you know? So I think people want to see on CVs that people have done well. So, you know, when you do your academics, you know, have you got a first class honours degree? Have you got a 2-1? If you didn't get a 2-1, you got a 2-2 and a third. Okay, so you still got a degree, but, you know, I would like to look in deeply into these sort of things and sort of say, well, why didn't you maybe achieve higher than what you did? You know, when you look at someone's CV, you look at their career movements, you know, what they've done and what direction they've gone in. Did they start as an engineer? Did they then go into planning? Why did they go into planning? Like me, did they fall into it a little bit? You know, I've got a few companies at the moment who are just taking on site managers and site engineers, and they're then putting them into planning jobs. So they're moving them across because they can't find planners. So they then move some internal people from site manager who want to do not on site in their boots. You know, they're by the computer, still working on sites, but obviously doing more of the planning and processing. So I think, yes, the attitude, I think the longevity of the jobs that they've had, is there a clear path? Does it make sense? Have they stayed at the companies they've worked at for a long time? You know, I still get a lot of people, you know, who are contractors, but if they've had a contract job every 3 months for 2 years, and it's a new company every 3 months, to me and to the employer, it says that they probably aren't good enough to get contract extensions. Yeah.
Yep.
Because if you get a 3 to 6 month contract and you're good enough, like I've got a contractor working for me now, and he's been working for me for 2.5 years, and they don't ever want to let him go because he's really good. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he just likes working as a contractor, and they're okay with that, you know. But when you look at his CV, you look at it and you think, oh, he must be permanent. And when he says, no, I've been contracting, it's like, well, okay, contracting is higher, it costs more money for the employer, so he must be good. Mm-hmm. So I think those sort of things. And then if anyone takes their career seriously, they might have done courses, you know, APM or something like that, or they've done a Primavera course or Power Project, or, you know, they've done some courses to improve themselves, or if they want to go into planning management, where you have to manage people, then maybe they've done a leadership course of their own, you know, their own decision to do it. They haven't, you know, no one's put them on that course. So I think that tells people that employers that person is conscientious, and that they're obviously taking themselves and their career seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when working with this company, you know, do you often get feedback from them? You know, like getting a feedback from a prospective employer. What does that do in terms of giving you an insight of, do I want to still go with this guy or not? Like clients' feedback, you know, does that really help in the business as well?
Yeah, frustrating, because sometimes, you know, you have good relationships with companies, mm-hmm. and some companies, you know, they don't give you the time of day that you need. Like, I can tell you at the moment, I'm on 375 jobs that I've registered since I set my company up 3 years ago. Wow. All right. So what's that? Quick maths. 125 jobs a year. Yeah. And I reckon I'm probably got 20 job specs from all of those jobs. Mm-hmm. Normally a manager would sort of highlight to me, I need a planner. We're doing highways. They need P6, and they're based in Birmingham, and I can pay £60,000. So then I have to then dig down and get more details and more information, yeah, and try and understand what the client's looking for in terms of experience, the CV, etc., asking questions that sometimes shouldn't be asked, you know, but have to be asked when you're a recruiter, because you have to sort of know the types of people that they want to hire and that they might not want to hire. So yeah, I mean, it's been difficult with some of the companies I'm working with at the moment. One of the things that's changed for me since I was at Project Resource, when I was Project Resource, it was all UK. Now, when I'm doing planning, I recruit for the whole of Europe. So anything, I've got jobs in Zurich at the moment, Frankfurt, in Düsseldorf, in Stockholm. So sometimes, you know, you've got to get that feedback from the client in terms of why, what they want. Normally that's okay to get that at the beginning. Some companies still, like yesterday, I had an email from a client asking me to find them 2 people for a job in a really hard location. I know they've had problems for the last year. They want to pay me about 8% less than I would accept. And I'm like, well, you're paying not enough money. So this is why you're using recruiters who will say yes to not that much money. They're then not giving you their best people. Those people then don't stay with you. And then you're paying 2 to 3 times more because you have to keep replacing people every 3 months. But unfortunately, some companies don't want to listen. You know, that's the difficulty. I find that quite bemusing, if I'm honest, with someone like me who's got 20 years recruitment experience, and I perform at the highest possible level that I can, which I believe is one of the highest levels of any recruiter. You know, and that's not to sound arrogant. I'm not arrogant. I'm just confident of my own ability. Is that companies still don't sometimes ask me for my advice. Yeah, so you're always constantly looking for feedback from the employer to get it right. I mean, some of the jobs I've got, and I, you know, like I said, I am confident, but some of the jobs I've got, you know, the client's been looking for 3 to 4 months. You know, normally I would say I'd fill a permanent job within a week to a month. A permanent job, found the candidate, they've interviewed, and they've been offered. Yeah, sometimes I fill a job in a day. You know, can be that quick. But yeah, but sometimes those companies, I find it very difficult sometimes when you have to go through 2 or 3 people. So sometimes if I'm speaking to you and you tell me what you need and we have a conversation, by the end of the phone call, I know what you need and I'll go and get it. And I put it in front of you and you say, yeah, I'll interview that person. And then you offer them a job. That's fine. That normally works really good for me. When you have to sort of put CVs through portals, which sometimes the bigger companies do, you've got to log on to a portal, like a piece of software, then you've got to put the CV, and it says if that CV is being sent by somebody else in the last 12 months or 2 years or 10 years. And then you can't speak to the hiring manager. So believe it or not, I can't speak to the person who's going to employ them, who's going to interview them. I'm not allowed to. You've got to speak to someone in HR or the recruitment team or something. Yeah. And sometimes that is very, very hard because I'm trying to get feedback. Imagine me trying to get, I'm asking you as to why you haven't employed a planner, right? You don't understand planning, not you personally, but you're in the recruitment team. So you don't understand what a planner does, right? You don't understand the program. You don't understand the complexities. You wouldn't know what a baseline is. You won't know any of that. So I'm asking them questions and they can't answer them. So then they're basically, it's just almost like saying, can you find me a planner who's got P6 and some highways? Thank you. That's it. You know, so that's all I get. So sometimes it's very, very difficult to fill those jobs. So I've got one consultancy I'm working with at the moment, and it's very, very hard. They're giving me a very, very generic, we're looking for this, this, and this. And it's like, well, that's fine, but I need more parameters. You know, someone says, oh, it could be, you know, go and find me a planner that's got highways experience and we can place them anywhere in the UK. That means I've got to go and speak. So I've got 8,000 planners right now on my database. Yeah, and it's growing all the time because I'm speaking to people in different countries. I can't start by going and phoning and emailing 8,000 people. I need to break it down into some form of manageable list, you know, 50 people that I can go and phone and speak to, and then I can narrow that down to the best 3 or 4. So yeah, so it's always a challenge, to be fair. And I think it's like anything in life. Yeah. You know, in anything in life and any walk of life, you've got good builders, you've got bad builders, you've got good electricians, bad electricians, you've got good car mechanics, poor car mechanics. You know what I mean? It's good recruiters, exceptional recruiters, and you've got rubbish recruiters. You know what I mean? It's just, that's the way it is. And the same with companies. You know, the companies, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but you know, I'm always looking for companies and planners that are in my sweet spot. You know, because you want, if you said to me today, Bill, I've got 3 years experience in planning and I want £150,000, you're not in my sweet spot because you want too much money. Yeah, no one probably is going to pay you that. You know what I mean? So you've got to always find those companies that, you know, you've got synergy with. I'm sure you do it yourself. You know, you work with people or companies and you just get on straight away. Right. And that's cool. It doesn't make your life hard. It shouldn't be hard to go to work and to do a job. It should just be fun. And if you like doing it and you enjoy it, like I do with recruitment, I love doing it. I don't do it for the money. Money is a nice, positive reason, because it pays well, but I do it because I absolutely love the buzz from helping someone get a job and they've gone from 40k to 48k, or they've gone from £80,000 to £90,000, or they're traveling 2 hours a day to get to work. Now they're traveling 15 minutes.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
good. It's good. Yeah,
It's all, that's what I love. And same with companies, I work with some companies, I won't name them here, but I work with lots of companies, and I love watching them in the news doing really well. Because I think, do you know what? When I was working with companies down at Heathrow Terminal 5, I play 6, 7, 8, 9 planners down there. And I thought, well, Terminal 5 is going well. The people I'm placing, they're making this iconic building that will be there for my whole life and my kids' lives, and I helped build it.
Yeah, that's a great feeling, and for me, I think that's part of like success as well, like you fulfilled as well, self-fulfillment as well, that's good. Yeah. But in terms of, going back to asking questions or asking companies and all that, you want to recruit for a planner, what are the questions you ask this planner to know if they're a good fit for that role?
I think the key thing when you're talking and you're recruiting, and I think this applies to any sales job, because if I asked you, what do you think constitutes a good salesperson? I mean, earlier today you said, well, maybe you could do recruitment of planners. Well, maybe you could. You think you probably could, yeah. But I think I could play football, but I'm not Cristiano Ronaldo. Nah. Yeah. All right. I think the key thing for most people is that a lot of people make the mistake of saying, oh, well, they've got to be confident and they've got to have good, good talking and stuff like that. We're starting all in the wrong place. You don't have to be overly confident. You don't have to be extrovert to be a good salesperson. You need to do 3 things, and they are listening, listening, and listening. Okay, the first thing you do with any person you ever speak to, same with my wife. She'll say that I don't listen to her, but I do, because we're still married at the moment. Fingers crossed. Is you got to listen to people, because when you speak to a company will phone me, and the first thing I'll ask them is probably, why has a job come about? Why are we talking today? Is it so they've grown, or they've had someone's resigned? There's got to be a reason for it, because I need to know. Yeah. Not that I would, I would explain this to the planners I'm speaking to. But when I'm speaking to planners, I want to listen first. Why are you phoning me today? Why is this job of interest to you? Yeah, you got to listen. And then normally the good salespeople be quiet, and they just listen to what the people got to say. You ask a question, you be quiet. Again, you listen to what they're saying. So you've got to find out what they want. What's that sort of perfect job? Where are they at with their work, life, career? And then you sort of go from there. Yeah, that's the key thing. Listening to everything that they say, and of course, I can go into everything that you ask. You ask, about what projects they've worked on, what values of those projects. I think one of the corrections that a lot of people don't ask is, where did they sit in the planning team or the hierarchy? If you're working on a big project like HS2 now, and I speak to you and say, yeah, well, I'm a planner at HS2. I said, okay, so are you the lead planner? Are you the number 1? Oh, no, I'm in a team of 10. Okay, so I need to know what you're working on. What do you specifically work in? And you might say, well, I work on a £50 million M&E package. Yeah. Or I work on the embankments, or I'm working on the enabling works. So I need to get down deep, because if I just think, oh, HS2, he's a rail planner, or she's a rail planner, and I then send you CV without even thinking about it, and I send it to a rail job. But what you've been working on is groundworks. And what my client wants is they're working on rail, but they're working on redevelopment of platforms and property, like the station. Mm-hmm. Well, that's building. That's building construction. Whereas the enabling works is civil engineering. You see what I'm saying? So you've got to just get it right. And I think that's where a lot of the inexperienced recruiters or less good recruiters, they don't really understand the planner. And so what they do is they then say, well, okay, well, my client says that they need P6. So I'm just going to, this guy's got P6 on his CV, but he's oil and gas, but I'll still send him. It's like, well, the client doesn't want oil and gas. They're building a bridge. Yeah. They're not building an industrial petrochemical building. You know what I mean? It's completely different.
Yeah. I know. We spoke about things you look for in terms of when recruiting. Like looking at CVs. What are the first things you look at, the red flags, or let's say the red flags, or the things that would tick you off, or like, okay, this CV, I like this CV. I want to speak to this guy again. What are those things you want to see on a prospective employee CV?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing to say is that when you're an experienced person like me, I can normally tell within 10 seconds whether or not I should carry on reading the CV. Yep. So the reality is that, if we throw some names out there, for example, okay, so Lang O'Rourke tell me that they want a planner. All right. So I'm going to be looking for companies on the CV that are in the Lang O'Rourke space. So I'm going to be looking, has this candidate worked for Kia or Balfour Beatty or whoever it might be? Yeah. So you're looking for matching patterns. Yeah. A recruiter, in a way, I'm not, I've ever gone into this or thought about this, but we're almost like matchmakers, where a lot over the last few decades, you've got these matchmaker companies that put men and women, or men and men and women together. Yeah. For relationships. You've got to just spot what's similar. So if this person here likes fishing, that person over there, they like fishing. This person likes going for walks in the countryside and they're a member of the National Trust. Also, this person, there's similarities. Yeah. So you've got to look at that from CV. So when I'm looking at a job, so right now, I'll take an example. I'm looking for a residential planner working for a developer in central London. I could pay £90,000. Okay. I'm not looking for someone who's worked for a consultancy. Okay. Because a consultancy, the client won't take them. It just won't. Yeah. If they work for a main contractor, probably they would. So I'm looking, when I look at the CV, have they worked for a housing developer or have they worked for a main contractor? That takes 3 seconds to look. Yeah. Then I'm looking, can I see the word residential? Can I see the words high rise? Can I see the word Asta or power projects? Yeah. And I keep going through this stuff and tick, 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 tick. Right. This person's worth me phoning. Yeah. If I look at someone and they don't have any of that, and they've maybe built, they've done a private build 2-3 houses for a small contractor who's got 10 staff. Well, I'm sorry, you can't throw you into a construction site that's building 1,000-unit high-rise building. You're just not going to get it. Yeah. You need to, but you also need to understand the type of company it is. One of the companies I'm working with at the moment, they insist for an interview, you have to wear a shirt and a tie. And even when you go to work, they still wear shirt and ties. It's that type of company, and that's fine. I don't mind that. But some people don't like that. They like a more relaxed style. Yeah. So that's sort of my thoughts on that.
For your experience, like when you look at those CV, you said you would probably call that person, or you probably won't call the person. You would just say, you know what, I'm not going to go ahead with this CV. But taking that approach, would you say there's anything like a good planner, a bad planner, or let's say ugly planner, to say, from your own experience?
First and foremost, I don't ask for photos when I speak to people. But I think the thing is with my database that I now use, I decided when I sort of started using my new database with the new company Construction Futures, I decided that I would actually have a rating section where I would rate people. So if I speak to you as a planner, I'm then going to rate you, okay, based on me, not on you. So I'm going to rate you as excellent or good or okay or poor or do not use or caution. Yeah.
So you give those internal reviews yourself, right?
Yeah. So yeah. So those are the sort of criteria that I would give. It's a rating, and if I have to factor in lots of different things, so I don't just this is what I do not do. I don't just make a judgment by looking at their CV and think, oh, well, they've worked for some good companies, I'm going to put them as excellent. I would say 90% of the people on my database are unknown, because I don't have a rating for them yet, because I haven't spoken to them in the last 3 to 6 months. And this rating can change all the time. I can put it up or put it down. Have they been fired? Have they been for an interview? Have I spoken to another planner that knows them? Have I spoken to a manager who knows them? Have they said good things, bad things? You know, if I've placed them in a job and they've always been professional with me, then I'll give them a good rating. I've got some good people who are good planners, but then they've just not returned my calls, or they've been for an interview and then they didn't phone me or didn't speak to me or didn't follow the rules that I wanted them to follow. Some people are, you know, very impolite, where they just go off the grid. You know, you sort of get them a job or get them an interview, or they say they want to be put forward for a job. You put them forward, and then suddenly they never return your phone calls or emails. And I personally, I'm sure I'll get some people commenting that I don't respond to everybody, but I try and respond to everyone who contacts me on LinkedIn, everyone who emails me. I try to respond. It may take a day, it may take a week, it may take a month, but I will try and respond as quickly as I can. Yeah, but I have to prioritize it. If you imagine me getting 150, 200 emails a day, yeah, just from the construction business, you know, from my perspective, I have to then differentiate which people are the best ones for me to phone. Who's going to make me money? Who can I help quickest? Yeah. If someone phones me today and says, I want a job in Dubai, well, I don't really work in Dubai, but I would still speak to them if they phoned me, and I would still document what they want. And if that comes up, I'll be in contact. But I'm not going to go and find them a job in Dubai, because I don't work in Dubai. Just haven't got time to do the whole world.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. You know, but haven't said that.
And also, if this video makes me so famous that I get phone calls from Dubai, I will not be happy.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, calling or returning calls, you know, I think for me, I've been to certain interviews that recruiters, you know, send me to, and they never get back to me. I've had that a couple of times, because I have a feeling that, you know, once they speak to the employer and they tell them, oh, we don't think we're going to take him, I think they don't just bother calling you back.
I think the thing you need to understand, okay, and I said this to my mum's husband at the time. He was asking me, he was an electrical engineer, and he would say, you know, when he was looking for a job, and my wife works in the hospitals, and she said the same thing about recruiters. You know, they just get loads of emails from them, and they don't phone me and all this stuff. I can't speak for every recruiter. I can only speak for myself. Is that I try to be professional. I try to be courteous. I try to have manners. I'm not perfect, and I get it wrong sometimes. But I think you try and just reach out to, these are human beings. We've got to try and be good for each other. We've got to try and help each other. But people need to understand that when you are a recruiter, and I get in the office at 7:30, when you heard my phone go off there, you know, I've got a client of mine who will phone me at 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, you know, and if my phone's still on, I'll answer the call. That's my best client, and I've placed, you know, 18, 19 planners with them in the last 2 years. So you know, from my perspective, I think they don't, because they do what I do, is they look at the CV and they think, you know what, I mean, I've got to be honest, you know, I won't respond to everybody right now. I get a lot of people from LinkedIn mainly who just send me their CVs, and they live in Egypt. I don't know why they're sending me the CV. I can't help you if you don't have a UK passport. I can't help you if you don't have an EU passport. And if you don't have a visa, what do you expect of me? You expect me to suddenly become a recruitment consultant, and you want me to then go and find you a sponsorship? I haven't got time to do that. And no company I know in the UK wants to use a recruiter like me who sends them people who need sponsorship.
So I haven't said that, you know. So if you go planners, you know, from Africa, you know, other part of the world that needs sponsorship, is that not something employers do over here? They don't do sponsorship.
Not really, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier on about the about employers. You know, we live in that society where it's throwaway society. You know, people want new stuff and they want good stuff. They want the best fit. So why would they recruit someone who needs a sponsorship or, you know, so if someone's never worked in this country, and then they want to come over from, normally it's not Europe, it's normally somewhere like Nigeria. I get a few of. Egypt I get millions of for some reason, and I get a lot from the Middle East. So and I'm like, well, what am I meant to sell to my employers? You don't understand the UK construction build market. Maybe you don't know the forms of contract, whether they be JCT or FIDIC or NEC.
Yeah.
So you don't understand. So you might be a planner and you can program a sequence, and that's fine. But you're competing against other planners that I'm putting forward who already have the experience the employers want, and they don't have a headache. Sponsorship costs money. I don't know what it costs these days, £2,000-3,000 or whatever. I have placed some planners that have studied in the UK. So they might have been from India or somewhere, Singapore, wherever. And then they've come to the UK and they've done a master's degree. And then they've got a student visa that they can work for 2 years. So an employer can hire them for 2 years. They can work for 2 years. And then after that, the employer potentially needs to sponsor them to remain in the UK. And some companies are okay with that. But still not really. You know, they would rather have someone who's English or has a UK passport or indefinite leave to remain. No issues working in the UK. That's priority number one. Yeah. But you were talking about, going back to your original question, you were talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, not the movie, but yeah, I'm no Clint Eastwood. But I think the other thing is, you know, the other thing that I would say for people, and again, I look for people's CVs. Some people manipulate the truth, and you've got to look at reality. Some people freak me out when they give me a CV and then you look at their LinkedIn profile and it doesn't say the same thing. Like, well, hold on a minute. You either did work at this company, you finished in December, or you finished in October. You know what I mean? It's just a little bit. So anything like that, when as a recruiter, if you're good at your job, you're almost like a detective. You know, you've got to like be, you know, looking at stuff and tweaking it and sort of finding out what's going on so you can understand the truth. Because every time I speak to an employer and I speak to a planner, I put my reputation on the line.
Absolutely.
If I don't find that person a job, that person walks away and thinks, "Ah, Bill's not that, he's not that great." Yeah. And if I don't find the employer a job, like I've had a few difficult jobs in the last 6 months, I will fill them. I will fill them. I will never give up. I tell every employer, I will never give up until I fill this job. Yeah. And the more you give to me, so if you give me the job exclusive, I will work till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock on a Friday night. I will be working hard to fill this job. Yeah. But if you go to 10 other recruiters and they're all, you know, sending you loads of CVs like this, and we're all fighting for one job, what's my incentive? I don't need to have a competition with 10 other recruiters. Yeah, because one of them might get lucky, 2 of them might get lucky, but I've wasted my time if I don't fill the job. So I'd rather work with companies that respect me and want to work with me, choose to work with me. But going back to your point on the CVs, the good, the bad, and the ugly, lots of jobs. You know, someone worries me if they've had loads of jobs. That is a concern for me. Yeah, they never stay anywhere a long time. We've sort of covered that off already today. Sometimes I think it's difficult really in the last 18 months because we've had a unique event in our lives, which is COVID-19. So a lot of people, especially if you were working at the airports, no jobs at the airports, is there?
Yeah,
no one's flying anywhere. So you had loads of people, especially companies like Turner and Townsend and companies there, they've got really good records at the airports. And suddenly they had to let most of their contractors go because they were contractors working at the airport, and they had to let them go, you know, or only keep a few on. And then suddenly I had all these planners who have airports experience, but I couldn't get them jobs because I didn't have any companies that wanted anyone who's got airport experience.
Yeah.
And to be fair, a lot of those guys and girls have never been unemployed, and some of them have been out of work for up to a year, you know. Some of them are still not working, so it's difficult. Also look for people who haven't finished their qualifications, that have started it and then finished, because that then tells you maybe that they don't complete things in life. That's something else that I look for. And also just looking at poorly written CVs. And it wouldn't bother me that someone's got one spelling mistake, for example, but I'm OCD, so I do notice it. And I used to be a teacher, so I see all these mistakes. But what I'm saying is, if you have those mistakes on your CV, which should be, this is me selling myself. Look at this CV. Yeah, that's your sales tool. That is what you are. It says everything about you. Your LinkedIn profile, that says to the world, this is who I am. Yeah, if that doesn't sell you, or it's got mistakes on it, or doesn't look as good as it can be, you're not taking the opportunity that's in front of you. So don't have errors, don't have mistakes, put some depth in it. The CV does not need to be 1 page, 2 page. That's rubbish. Your CV just needs to be concise and to the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and if your CV is 10 pages, just put at the end of page 2 or 3, a longer, more in-depth CV can be sent if requested. I would always want the longest CV that someone has, because I want to know everything about the person. Yeah. Then also when speaking to people, I get this quite a lot as well, which is, when you've got people from different countries as well, and even some people in the UK, some people have very strong local accents. Yeah. Whether they're from an overseas country, or whether or not, I'm working on some jobs in Scotland at the moment, and sometimes it's quite hard to understand someone with a really strong, Scottish or Glaswegian accent. So you've got to sometimes tell people to slow down. I've had to tell people sometimes for interviews, look, go into the interview, but just make sure you speak slowly, because the person you're interviewing, I can understand you because I speak to thousands upon thousands of people a year, and I've done it for 26 years, right? But if they're not used to your accent, or they're not used to the way you speak or how you speak,
it's going to be difficult.
You need to slow it down, because they've never heard your voice before. They've never heard and if they're trying to take on board your body language and everything else, it's sometimes a lot for someone to take in, and you don't want to intimidate. Another thing is, sometimes people don't ask the question, don't answer the question that they've been asked, which sounds bizarre. Yeah, but sometimes I've had it recently. They're asked a question and then suddenly they go off and don't actually answer the question that they were asked. They won't provide referees or anyone who would give them a reference. Again, I look on LinkedIn. Have they got referees on LinkedIn? Yeah. And again, I always say to people, look, if you've got a choice of looking at recruiters, go and look at my LinkedIn profile compared to others. I've got over 100 planners who recommended it. It speaks for itself. These are all real people. Yeah. And you probably know them. So speak to one, Yeah. And then they can't convince me that they're moving jobs. They want to move. That sounds stupid. You might think, well, someone's phoned you, they want to move jobs. No, there's a lot of people, especially contractors. They basically always phone me, just trying to find out what the market is. Are there any jobs? What rate are they getting? Or what are they getting? What should they be getting paid? You know what I mean? And they're what we call the window shopper. Looking in the window, but their wallet's glued in their pocket. They're not taking that out. You know what I mean? So they're not going to spend money. So as a salesperson, if someone comes into my car showroom or wherever I'm selling shoes, I want to know straight away. I'll need to know, is this person here to buy? Are they here to spend money? If they are, they're like a king or queen to me that day, because that's what they are. That's why, if I've got a phone call now, when we finish this, and someone said to me, I need a contractor tomorrow morning, it's exclusive with you. I'll go and tell my wife I've got to work tonight, and I wouldn't finish until I've found someone. People don't understand sometimes that recruitment is a hard job. You get rewards, but my longest day is 6 in the morning. I started work and I finished at midnight.
Wow, that's some hours, man.
Yeah, but I placed 10 people at the end of that. My client wanted 10 people. It was in IT, and they wanted 10 people to start the next day. I went and found them 10 people. So I had to work that hard to find the people. And the last one for me, in terms of when you're speaking to them, is unrealistic expectations. You know, some people says, oh, you know, contractor says, well, I'm on 450 a day now. I'm outside IR35, and now I want £600 a day outside IR35. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I'll document that. But at the moment, 99% of jobs are permanent. The 1 or 2 contract jobs that do come up, most of them are inside IR35, and most companies don't want to pay that much money. So you're either going to stay out of work or you need to stay where you are. You know, so it's just that. And again, that's going back to what I said earlier about the sweet spot. You know, they're not in my sweet spot. You know, it's like a football team, isn't it? A football club. You know, I support Crystal Palace football team, and if I'm the chairman, yeah, and I want a player, but that player wants £200,000 a week, and my budget's £50,000 a week, well, I can't afford him, can I?
No, you can't.
And if I stretch to pay that, I then may put my business into jeopardy.
Absolutely.
Yeah? And I'm planning on being in the top 10 in the Premier League. But if I'm not in the top 10, suddenly I've lost £30 million that year. So you just can't do it, and it's just wasting my time. Also worth stating, you know, I think I've covered it, but the volume of calls and emails. So it's we can't always respond to everybody. Yeah. So what I've got to do is always just check out the people. You know, when I'm emailing a job, for example, if you're on my database as poor or caution, you're not going to get that email, because I haven't got time to speak to people explaining why I can't put you forward for jobs. Yeah. And same, same applies to, you know, anybody that's, you know, I've got to make that judgment call, which is that 10, 20, 30 second, maybe a minute. If they're lucky, I'll look at the CV and I'll make that judgment call. You know, if you haven't worked for, like, this guy's that sent me a CV recently, but hasn't worked for 2 years. Well, I can't prioritize that person to phone him. Yeah. Because I've got other people who've got better profiles.